Forbes Riley.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Forbes Factor, the radio show, the podcast, the sensation that's been on for over a decade. I'm so excited to be spending this time with you. For some of you, you're watching this live on YouTube, and you're going to get to see my television studio because I am here live. It is absolutely spectacular to be in this place. I have been doing an event all week long with taking entrepreneurs and moving them through a journey that has been absolutely spectacular. I got to tell you, when you meet people in person, it's life-changing. And I'm going to highly recommend that all of you go to a seminar, a training. My guests, I've had a chance to both meet them. We're going to pull them up in a few minutes. We've got two amazing women today, and I'm excited to have them part of the show. But before I get to there, I'm just going to ask you, as an entrepreneur, are you investing in yourself? Are you going to trainings? And the training that I've created, and I've been doing it started in my living room 30 years ago, believe it or not, when I decided that I had a superpower. The superpower was to look at people and go, you know what? I think you're stuck. I think the sabotaging and procrastinating that you're doing can be healed if we go back in time and do one simple little energetic thing. We can figure out what your first memory in life is, what decision you made about it, go through my process, and 20 minutes later, people were not only saying, oh my God, I feel lighter, but I realized that my whole life, I've been letting my 4-year-old drive my bus. The time when I tripped in front of my grandparents and everybody laughed, and they said, oh, she's such a klutz. Well, for the rest of your life, you say, oh, I'm such a klutz. Well, wait a second. Where did that come from? It's not real. It's not who you are. And I got to tell you, once you have uncovered that and let it go, things change. So one of my clients just said to me, she's the CEO of a company and she's in her 50s. And she said she was about to be fired. And I'm like, why? Are you not doing a good job? She said, no, I just can't get in front of people and speak. My hands get so sweaty. I get so sick to my stomach. I don't want to do it. And my job depends on it. And so I said, well, is there a time when, let's go back. Turns out, she's in second grade. She's 7 years old. And she gets up to read a book report. She got so nervous that she peed. Her classmates made fun of her. Her teacher did not really help her. And she made a decision that says, I'm never doing this again. I'm never going to be speaking in public. Well, decades later, she's a fantastic CEO, but she's got to deliver quarterly sales reports in front of people. We go through my procedure, which is called the breakthrough. And I got to tell you guys, she is not only thriving, has a new book, and she's speaking on a book tour all over the country. I am thrilled to be part of her story as I am part of your story. And the goal of what I do is to inspire, educate, and empower you to live the very best of your life, to not let these silly little things hold you back. And especially if you're a woman, because I got some pretty rock star women today joining me. And my first one focuses on confidence. I had an opportunity to meet this beautiful woman who I hope turns on her camera so we can see her and joins us live. I stalked her. I first saw her on Instagram. I saw her on LinkedIn. And I thought, man, it'd be so cool to know her. Well, when you manifest an idea and put it out to the universe and you do it with intention like I and she and so many others do, these things come true. And I will tell you, we do not say in my world, oh my God, I can't believe it. No, we say as expected. As expected, this organization called me and said, we'd like you to be a speaker. And our other keynote speaker is the beautiful blonde version of you. No, they didn't say that, but I knew that was true. Please welcome to the stage the one and only Miss Heather Monahan. Oh,
great to be here with you, Forbes, and so good to see you again.
Oh my gosh. It's funny. I stalked a woman on America's Got Talent. How crazy is this? I watched her a couple of years ago during COVID, and she broke my heart. She was just the most wonderful woman, got a golden buzzer. And I used to use her song because Simon had stopped her. And the way that she regrouped and re-got herself and then got a golden buzzer in front of her 3-year-old son inspired me to no end. I stalked her. She became a friend. She was not only on my podcast, but we talk all the time. She's on Broadway right now. So Heather, I only see amazing things for you now that Forbes Riley knows you and does that little woo-woo thing. Whatever you want is yours.
I love that. I'm running with it. Thank you.
You're also this most amazing mom and just a wonderful woman overall. And the last thing I will say before I let you talk is that when I was growing up, I wanted to look like you do. And I was so sad that I didn't. Right. But isn't that funny for a woman to admit that? I don't know that.
What are you talking about?
Right. But I wanted to have this straight blonde hair, and this cute little face. And I just didn't have that. And for me, one of my things that I got over in my life was I would just look at pretty women and I didn't know what to do. I would just like stare. Didn't think they'd want to be my friend. Now, obviously, I've outgrown this. I'm 64 years old and I've got a pretty good handle on who I am. But I'm going to tell you, I think there's young women who might get intimidated by how you look, or young men or older men. Do you find, before we find out more about you, that that is one of the things that you deal with in your life?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, seeing as how I was fired by another woman in corporate America, and I think that had 90% to do with it. Unfortunately, yes. However, I can put my empathetic side of me on and say, I remember in 2018, I was in New York City and I had just been fired. This young Miss New York, she was in her 20s, right? So she's like 15 years younger than I am. And she's Miss New York. So she's legitimately makes money off of her face, right? I mean, thank you for saying I'm so pretty, but like this woman is literally a model. I'm not a model, right? And so this woman is like the top 0.01% of best looking. In my mind, she messaged me and said, I want you to come to a photo shoot. I need you to join me in a photo shoot. I was like, whoa. I was having a panic attack. I'm like, no way, because she's so much prettier than, you put people on pedestals. And I had done that. And so she texts me back, stop it, get over here right now. I need you. And when somebody needs my help, I show up. So I go, and it was such a great experience. And I want to share the story so it can relate to others in the same way that you were putting other people on a pedestal. I've done that too. We've all done it, right? But it was so cool. I go to this photo shoot. She brought me as the older woman because she wanted diversity. I know, there you go, right? I knew it going in, and I'm like, okay, suck it up, Heather. You're here to do the right. She's a great person. I was like, just do the right thing for the, 5'10" supermodel. And I got in there, and it was all Miss Americas, all Miss New Jersey, Miss New York, all Miss, America, and me. And I was 15 years older than everybody else. Cut to, they had the most incredible photographer. They took 1 million pictures of us that day. I definitely had the biggest personality. So I was like getting everybody to do different things, taking over. And at the end, the photographer came up to me and said, can I take a few shots of you alone? I'm like, yeah, sure. Whatever you want. She does. Wouldn't you know, I didn't pay $1 for that shoot, right? It took 2 hours out of my day to go help a friend out. And that became the book cover of my first book, which to this day, I get so many compliments on. And it was that photographer just saying, like, I see something really special here. I want to capture it in this moment. And that became my book cover. So to your point, like when you show up and just kind of put everybody on the same level playing field, like, yeah, they're Miss America, I'm not, but there's things I do that are special and cool and different that they don't have. And we're all equal and we're all cool and good people. And we're going to celebrate that. Amazing things can occur. Had I said no and let my ego control me to say, I'm not going to be the prettiest, I'm not the youngest, I wouldn't have my book cover.
I love that story. And it does remind me, though, the difference between boys and girls is that we are in beauty pageants. I was in a national one. I ended up being Miss Teenage New York. We judge each, well, that wasn't a beauty pageant. That had to do with taking a written test, having a talent and a personality. That was a very interesting competition, but it was on television. But as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, you know what? Tom Brady and Mahomes, those guys don't do that. You know what? They have a whole team of people, and everybody on that team has a different talent. I've never been on a real team. And as I'm looking at how you react to that maybe I'm fixated on it because society told me that Disney girls, princesses look a certain way. And they are also Miss America. There's only one in a bikini who looks perfect and the rest of you don't win. And it doesn't even make sense that we've done this to each other because it's certainly not my wiring now, but I revert to that little girl going, oh, right?
Oh, yeah. Totally relatable.
To work on this. All right, for those of you who don't know Heather Monahan, what rock have you been living under? Heather is the queen of confidence and so many other things, and I love listening to her speak more than looking at her because that is her strong suit. What she's now giving to other people. Heather, give us a little bit of your background and how you came to who you are.
Yeah, I grew up poor in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I remember I knew that I didn't want to be poor, so I figured I'll just start working and I'll work harder than everybody else. So at 9 years old, I started with a paper route. Then by 11, I was bussing tables, then fast food restaurants, then waiting tables, then bartending. And ultimately I was fine tuning and developing sales skills my entire life, even though I didn't know it. You can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only do that looking back. but it was such a gift and this blessing that I grew up for and had this challenging childhood because it gave me this superpower. By the time I was 21, when everybody was graduating college, myself included, I entered the workforce as an expert. So I became the number one seller at the Gala Winery my first year out of school. And then, I moved into, I just kept elevating and elevating in business very quickly because I had this challenging childhood. And what I ended up learning, and I hope for anyone listening that this resonates with them, is that there's all these moments in life where you see things as dark, you see things as negative, but they end up being a blessing if you allow them to be. Another good example of that is in my 20s, I was living with my boyfriend. I thought we were getting married. He cheated on me. And I went to work the next day devastated. And my boss said to me, "Do you want to get out of here?" And I said, "I want to go so far away from here and never come back again." So funny. And I never thought of leaving my hometown. And he said, "I'm going to put you on a plane. I'm going to make you my partner. You need to go drive revenue and sell this company for me. I'm dropping you off." He said, "Don't ask where you're going." I said, "I don't care." And so here it was, like this low moment I saw as a low moment. I got on a plane. We went and bought a company for $25 million. He dropped me off in Saginaw, Michigan, the middle of nowhere. And I worked so hard to build a team, drive revenues, and we sold that company for $55 million in under 3 years. And so that really exploded my business trajectory, put my name on the map. That would have never happened if that man had not cheated on me. I would have never left there. I would have married him, right? So my whole life changed. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You have to start saying, I'm not getting rejected. I'm getting redirected to something so much bigger. So I took that opportunity. I pitched myself for a job that didn't exist. I became VP of sales of a large national media company. I was promoted 3 times. I made it into the C-suite. Another thing everybody told me I couldn't do because I'm a woman and blonde hair and, and I grew up poor and all the reasons people tell you that you can't do something. I made it to the C-suite. I was named one of the most influential women in radio. And then the CEO I worked for 14 years became Elle. His daughter replaced him and she fired me immediately. Completely unexpected. I had an 18-month non-compete, non-solicit, which meant I had to leave the business that I had expertise in for 25 years. And I had to start over somewhere new. And I'm a single mom and I have an expensive lifestyle. And it ended up being one of the biggest redirections, not rejections, of my life, because it led me to this completely different purpose-driven path and purpose. And I wrote my, first book myself. I signed with HarperCollins Leadership, wrote my second book. I launched my podcast, which has top 20 on the business podcast now for 5 years. It's crazy. I speak on Tony Robbins stages. I mean, I'm so blessed beyond measure. However, for anyone that sees me today, in those low moments, it's tough. It is tough, right? It's scary. It's sad, but it's like training yourself, training your muscles, training your memory that, wait a minute, I know this feels tough, but I know I've been here before. I know I've made it through these past experiences and there's got to be some blessing on the other side of this one. I'm going to start stepping and taking messy action into it and figure out where it takes me.
You talk about being so good in sales immediately. What did you learn? What secret did you know that makes somebody good at sales?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you a number of different, this is what I did in corporate America for 25 years. So first and foremost, the key to sales is listening, active listening. Always. You want to uncover what that other person's problem is, because once you can solve someone's problem, you're effectively selling. Selling is equal to helping. So often people see selling as bad and terrible. No, selling is actually helping other people solve their problems. So when you approach it that way, you're serving and giving to others. It makes it much more palatable. And you want to, you're driven to go, I want everyone to buy my book because I know it's going to help them so much. I'm so excited about it, right? So when you believe in what you're doing and you're offering a solution to a problem somebody else has, you're driven to get up every day and help them solve this problem. So asking great open-ended questions is super important in any sales situation. The more, I call it getting someone to empty their glass to you, right? I want anyone that I'm sitting with to empty their full glass to me, because the more I know, the more empowered I am to help them solve some challenge or difficulty that they have, so that I can effectively help them improve their life while moving my products and services forward, right? So be a great active listener. If somebody's a little bit more calm than you, calm yourself a little bit, not to completely mirror them, but you want to. I did a virtual speech this morning. And when we were on the pre-call, I'm like, tell me about the audience. I want to know, empty your glass. Tell me everything I need to know. And they're like, these are a bunch of engineers and they're, more quiet people. So I dress differently. I wear my hair differently. I sit down instead of stand. Like there's so many things you can do to slightly adjust you to help meet someone where they are, which makes them feel a bit more comfortable so that they're more engaged, so that they hear you and relate to you instead of keeping you at a distance, right? Like the whole key is you want to put yourself in their shoes so they know that you see them, you empathize with them, and you actually understand them. Then they're going to know, like, and trust you. And that's when people are the most effective they can be in selling.
Those are great and very insightful. Do you think you just knew that or did you learn it?
No, you learn it. And the beauty was, I was 9 years old with a paper route. I started noticing if I screw up and don't leave a paper, people are going to get pissed the next day. Says something about consistency and the importance of being consistent, setting expectations with people, properly communicating. If I'm asking for money from people and they owe me the money and they're not paying, me letting it go is not going to fix the problem. Having direct and clear communication with people, setting expectations. I kept seeing patterns that would go on. Asking for referrals when somebody was a champion for me, right? Like getting warm leads from people who are already your advocate. All of these things, upselling people into you should be buying 7 days of papers instead of just Sunday's paper, right? Like there were so many, but all of these rudimentary examples I was learning through a paper route or waiting tables or bartending applied to every business and beyond, and any interaction that you have with anybody, right? So people will say, like, a podcast is another great example of that. Getting people to talk, getting people to empty their glass, getting people to feel safe and seen by you is going to make everybody else feel more comfortable.
Share with me about your first book so everybody knows a little bit about it, the inspiration for writing it and how that whole process went for you.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I was fired when I was 43 years old unexpectedly. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. I put a post up on social media that said, if I was just fired, if I've ever helped you, I need to hear from you now. I raised my hand and I asked for help. That post went viral and landed me on the Elvis Duran show. I had no idea what I was going to talk about going on the Elvis Duran show, but I just knew if I stayed in my same bubble, my same community, nothing new would come to me. I had to put myself in uncomfortable. I had to go beyond what I was used to if I want some different outcome. And that's the same for anyone listening. If you want to go bigger next year, if you have different goals and dreams, you've got to start doing things differently and exposing yourself, like you said earlier, to different events, different circles of people, different communities, invest in yourself, go to some of these, opportunities and speaking events so that you can expose yourself to different thoughts, people, and community. So I went to the Elvis Duran show. I was very nervous. I've taught myself to say, there's a fine line between fear and excitement. I'm excited. Like, retrain your brain. This is excitement, not fear. And you can actually do that. And neuroscience will show you it's the same patterns in your body when you are fearful or excited. It's exactly the same. It's just what you tell yourself that you are. So I was retraining myself to get excited about stepping into fear, which I now choose to see as a green light that means go and go faster. And on that show, halfway through, he says to me, obviously, you're writing a book. I was not writing a book. But he spoke with a conviction, a belief, and a confidence in me that I decided to accept and bring with me. And I said, you're right, Elvis, I am writing a book. I said, and it's coming out this year. Here's what's important. One, always speak belief, confidence, and inspiration into others because they, like me, can accept it. And that can change the trajectory of their life and business. And like, speak your beliefs into others. It's so worthy and worthwhile. But two, I held myself accountable. Not only did I claim it in front of him and all of his listeners, but then I gave myself a deadline. And too often, we'll say like, oh, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to lose 5 pounds, or I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to launch a podcast. But we're not saying, and I'm doing it by this deadline, and I'm going to reverse engineer how I get there. That's exactly how I got myself to write my second book. I announced I was doing it before I wanted to do it because I knew I didn't want to do it. I'm like, it's going to be hard. I don't want to do it. So I make the announcement I'm doing things, and then I run it back and say, oh, shoot, I got to back into this. I better get moving. And I put that pressure on myself. So I didn't know how to write a book. I Googled, how do you write a book? It said, write. I'm like, great. I have free time. I had just been fired. And so I just started writing. And before you knew it, a few months in, I thought, I need someone who's done this before to advise me. That will help me move faster. So I invested in myself and hired an editor, someone who had written 19 books. And once we were together, it took us 2 months to finalize the book, launched it on Amazon, and it was a #1 bestseller that trumped Donald Trump for #1 on the autobiography list. And yes, I have the screenshot to prove that one.
Oh, and I love that. You talk about accountability. And you don't necessarily know this about me, but I was in a really bad van accident in Iceland with my family in March. And we came out of that. My husband's a bodybuilder, and he said to me, kind of jokingly, there's a bodybuilding competition that he needs to enter in our hometown. He said, there's a category for women your age. And I'm like, that's nice. I'd found out in January I was the highest weight I've ever been in 33% body fat. I'm building a business, honey. I have no time to go to the gym. That's your thing. And then because of the accident, something hit me. And it's funny because I wrote a little book about it called Flip the Switch. And I literally said to my entire audience, I've got a mastermind of thousands of people, and I said, June 29th, which is 99 days from tomorrow, I'm going to be in a bikini on a stage in a fitness competition. And they all were like, okay, great. They did not know that I was the highest weight I'd ever been. And for 99 days, I had one goal in my mind. I ate no sugar, no carbs, worked out 2 hours every day. When I first got the bikini, I couldn't fit one of my legs in it. And it was like, wow, you want to talk about fear and excitement being that same line? That chasm was like this, and I was living in fear. And I did it on June 29th. I've got a medal to prove it on a little teeny bikini sitting in the room over there going, I got to tell you, face your fears. So I am very proud of how you've lived your life. And as a mom, what's important for you being a role model as a mom?
Oh my gosh, it's everything. Listen, we can sit around and tell our kids, listen, when you get knocked down, you get back up and you fight for it, but they're not going to do what we tell them to do. They're going to do what they've seen us do. And my son saw me under the weighted blanket when I got fired. And then he saw me that same day rise up and say, I'm not going down like this. Watch what mommy's going to do. And it's funny because he's 17 now, and this all was happening when he was, 9, when he was much younger. But then the pandemic hit and my business got shut down. My speaking business closed and I had to reopen a new business. He's seen it now cycle a few times, and it gets easier every time, right? Because the more you step into fear and the unknown, the more comfortable you are. It's like anything, right? I went to Saudi Arabia to speak at the largest tech conference last year. I was scared to death. I'm going back in a couple months. I'm so hyped. I know what I'm walking into, right? The more you do scary things, the less scary they are. And so he's seen that with me. He wants to go to the NBA. He got cut from a team that he really wanted to be on. And when he got home, I saw him upset. I said, tell me what's going on. He said, I didn't make it. But you know what? It's one of those moments, Mom, that you just say, okay, I'm here and I'm not staying down. I'm being redirected to something so much better. I'm sure there's a better team out there. And maybe I wasn't swinging big enough. Maybe I need to go for more. And like he started applying to all these. He turned it into a pivotal moment. Forget like about that team, but it wasn't about the team. It was about him. It's about the way he thinks, and that he knew this isn't the end. This is my beginning, and this is my jump.
We're on live radio. I want you to simply tell people, how can they find you? How do they know more about Ms. Heather Monahan?
I am at Heather Monahan everywhere. My podcast is Creating Confidence with Heather Monahan. You can get my books, my podcast, and everything at heathermonahan.com.
I love that. And so we've got about 30 more seconds. I'm just going to give you a quick little tour. We're sitting here in my television studio here in St. Pete, and you're talking about moms. I very rarely get to do this, but I'm in business with my daughter. And we've got 30 seconds left. I'm going to send you guys off to a wonderful break, and you're going to come back, listen to the Forbes Factor. Heather and I are going to tip in here because everybody on YouTube gets to see us. And we're going to go into a private room to see a 21-year-old CEO who did not know she was going to be on camera. Say hello to Heather Monahan, one of my amazing women in my life. You're going to want to listen to this broadcast. And she was just talking about how she inspired her son. How did I inspire you? 2 seconds.
Being an incredible mother.
Yeah, there you go. Mwah, I love you too. I had to take that moment, guys. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this break. I never really broadcast from my studio. I'm always at home, so this is such a treat. Guys, Heather Monahan, everywhere you want to know. First of all, her books are amazing. You want to find her on social media, reach out to her, and then listen to her podcast called
Creating Confidence with Heather Monahan.
Of course it is. All right, we'll be right back after this.
All clear. Back into.
My daughter's like, what did you just do? We've been in a team meeting. That girl runs my entire business. We are still on YouTube, just so you know. We've stopped the radio show. What a treat. Heather, where do you live? Well, what town do you live in? What area?
Miami.
You are over there. Okay, that was beautiful. You have such, it's funny. Barbara Majeski. Oh, got a wonderful woman who's on television, beat colon cancer, and is a beautiful light that I met in Clubhouse. I've been friends for a couple of years. Veronica, I see you on the podcast. Can you unmute and let me know what time Barbara's coming on?
She's actually here. I'm going to let her in.
Okay, beautiful. I appreciate that. Heather, I would like you guys just to meet because I think it's kind of a cool thing. So, we'll be back in about a minute. Come on in and just say hey. How can I still tell your Gary Vee story. I love it. It's just because I don't meet many people, forget women, who do and take the route that you've taken that I've been doing my whole life. I have no idea. People say you think outside of the box. My question is, what box are we talking about? Right.
Forbes, excuse me for a while. Can you admit Barbara? I don't have the access to admit
I
her.
don't see. Wait, hang on a second. Is she?
She's in the attendees.
Oh, I got to bring her up. That was mon me. Yes. Normally I'm in my home studio. You're gonna love meeting her. Remember, you're still on YouTube, so let's not embarrass each other. No taking our clothes off. Oh, I say the weirdest things. I don't know why it just comes out of my mouth. Ms. Barbara!
There I am.
All right, I'm going to bring you down. I just need you to meet Heather. She is just spectacular. The two of you need to know each other. She's got a hit podcast. And say hi.
Hey, Heather. Good to see you.
Hi, so nice to meet you, Barbara.
So Barbara and I are friends. Now, you were on live on YouTube. As I just shared, you probably saw us walk around the studio and say hi to McKenna, who's in the other studio. We're planning 2025.
Sorry, interrupt. Coming back in 15.
I'm back in 15. All right, I'm going to have both of you on here. We'll do a little meet and greet live. Barbara, you've been listening to Heather ask her one question, and then we'll say bye to her, and we'll focus on you, my girl.
Absolutely. You just do the countdown and I'll do it.
Everybody smile. I'm looking at three unbelievable women. Small. Oh, yes.
You are listening to the Forbes Factor. To question or comment, send an email to Forbes@ForbesRiley.com. Now back to the show. Here's Forbes Riley.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Forbes Factor, my favorite hour of the week, where I get to focus on health, wealth, and happiness, interview some of the most amazing people, and what a joy to have this show for over 12 years on the air. Today, we've been drilling down with Heather Monahan, and I'll tell you, I probably could have a 2-hour conversation with her because there's some stories that she didn't have time to tell. I'm going to ask her, maybe she can just sneak in a little bit of the Gary Vee story. It's so damn exciting. And Barbara Majeski, my next guest, who is a powerhouse female broadcaster, also a mom, just an amazing woman that I met on Clubhouse many years ago. She was listening in the other room, and I said, you know what, Barbara, why not have everybody meet? I am all about breaking whatever stereotypes we have about women being catty or playing small. We don't have time to do that. I don't have time on the planet to care. I want to embrace and love on mostly my women, because as we are all, the three of us, have come to learn, that's not promoted. Barbara, if I said to you, what does the word catty mean to you? Did you ever experience that when you were little?
You know what? I experienced it more when I became an adult, more than when I was little, which is like so odd for me and nothing that I identify with. But I do feel that all ships rise in high tide. And when you're surrounded by other really confident, powerful women, they want to see you. It's like you win, they win. And when you're in the right company, everybody wins. So it's more as an adult.
Well, no, but it's funny. I watched my daughter go through that when she was little, and I came to understand that I personally don't really like little girls. Little girls are kind of mean to each other. Like, what gives with that? And then as I got older and I've been through my own stuff and I've been coaching and I'm meeting people who've gone through horrible stories, I don't care how beautiful you are as a woman. You've been through some stuff, and I don't want to trade places with you. And so I'm going to love on you and cherish that you're here. Heather, a catty story, young or old?
My ultimate catty story is getting fired by another female, right? When there was no reason to fire me. It was just one of those, like, you're a target. I don't like you. Get out of my way. But, at the end of the day, like you said, it was a redirection to something so much better. So I'm grateful for it today.
So it's kind of a great moment. So Barbara, you were in the audience. You were listening to Heather. There's a question that you might want to ask her that maybe I haven't thought of.
I got to hear the Gary Vee story. I can't ask anything else. That's it. I'm like,
okay, I'll try to make it as tight as I can. So I knew when I launched my podcast, Go Big or Go Home, I wanted Gary as my first guest. So I started DMing him. I was really getting nothing back. So I took out a Google alert on his name, which anytime you want anything, take out a Google alert on it, because then every morning you wake up, you're going to, in your inbox, you'll have an update on what's happening in that person's life. And so every day I'd find out what was going on with Gary. And one day I saw he was launching a wine company. I had a presence on LinkedIn. If you don't have a presence on LinkedIn, develop one now. It's so important. Don't have a ghost face there. So I went to LinkedIn, where I have my face, my posts, and my credibility. And I sent a DM to Gary's new partner, who was not a celebrity, not a known name. And I just said, hey, listen, I was in the wine business for a while, did really well, had the #1 brand launch in Massachusetts. If I can help you at all, I would just like to support you and help another friend who's launching something and trying to build something new.
All right, I got to pause 1 second. So, guys, you know I teach pitching. That is the ultimate pitch. She reached out to somebody that she wanted something from, and what did she do first? Offered to give. That is such a genius strategy. I would have coached you to do that.
It's so basic. It's what everyone should do. But anyhow, we're giving you the playbook right here. This is how you get what you want in life. And so he called me immediately. We were on a phone call for 1 hour. At the end, he said, that was super helpful. What in the world can I ever do to help you? And I said, oh my gosh, thank you for saying that. I'd love it if you get Gary Vee on my podcast. And he started laughing. He's like, all right, hang on. Went to the next office, asked Gary. Gary came back and was like, well, she needs to buy some wine. She needs to show that she's got like, you know, a dog in the fight here to help us. So I bought wine and like got behind the brand. And anyhow, Gary not only became a guest on my show, but had me as a guest on his show as well.
That's a great story.
And part 2 of that story about how she had a guest on his show is even more interesting, but we don't have time right now. Heather, thank you so much for joining us one more time, guys. Reach out, Heather. She's got 2 beautiful books, a great podcast, Go Big or Go Home. That's funny. You know, your now is called Creator Confidential.
Confidence Creator is the first one. Overcome Your Villains is the second one. And Creating Confidence with Heather Monahan is the podcast.
Such an underachiever. Oy.
Hey.
In good company. Great minds attract one another. I'm so blessed to have been here with you two today, and I can't wait till the next time I see you in person.
Thank you, Heather. Biggest hug.
Nice meeting you.
Bye.
All right, Miss Barbara, it has been too long. Barbara and I used to hang out on Clubhouse every morning, and the best part of that was we didn't need any makeup to do it.
I miss those days. There's nothing like it.
I know. Well, I also miss listening in on you, and you're such a role model. One big part of your story is what you've overcome. I don't want to give it away. I want you to share with our audience a little bit about Miss Barbara Majeski.
Sure. And thank you so much, Forbes, for having me. I really appreciate it. And, you know, I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer on the heels of my marriage imploding like a dumpster fire, blaze of glory, you know, one of those Lifetime movies where you didn't see it coming and, you know, you're just balled up in the fetal position and then you get diagnosed with cancer. So I kind of got the 1-2 punch, but my journey through chemotherapy and marriage therapy simultaneously kind of led me to higher ground. And as it's been said and always deserves to be repeated, is you grow through what you go through. And that's where I ultimately found myself, was in a better place. I had to go low to go forward. I had to go low to go ahead, you know? So that's a brief, that's the Cliff Note version.
What did you want to be when you were young?
You know, I have a brother with special needs, and I always knew that I wanted to take care of him. So I made a vow, a very sacred vow, when I was 13 on a plane ride with my special needs brother from coast to coast. And I vowed that I would always take care of him. He just had put a lot of faith in me. He had trusted me because I was moving him from California to New Jersey. He wanted to stay with his dad. And I was like, I can't leave you. He's 3 years younger than me. And I was like, listen, you're going to have to get on this plane with me. And on that flight back, in my head, I visualized how I could take care of Stephen. I was like, you'll never have to worry about anything. I'm going to take care of you. And it was this kind of thread throughout my life of like, I couldn't just get paid. I had to learn how to make money. So I know that's like perceived in an odd way. Well, you know, I needed to make money. I couldn't get a paycheck. I had to find opportunity and where I would be compensated based on my hard work. So I was driven more from purpose than really passion towards anything. And it ultimately led me on a very, very interesting journey through direct sales and scaling sales teams, to philanthropy, to television, to writing a book, and to this realization that I want to share with your audience, because I think it is I think this will resonate with somebody and everyone, is when I took stock of my life when I was going through cancer. And I realized, like, okay, if I don't make it, how are my kids going to remember me? Like, what do I want them to know about me? And I thought of all these highlights in my life, my 42 years. I wanted to remember this, I wanted to remember that, and da-da-da. And each of those highlights came with a break point of like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard. I want to quit. And every time I got to that break point, I thought, if I quit, I can't take care of Stephen. If I quit putting myself through college, I can't take care of Stephen. If I don't figure out how to scale these sales teams, I'll never have the money to take care of Stephen, and he'll be institutionalized. So everything I was ultimately really proud of persevering through really was predicated on that I was taking care of him. But it was in this moment of reflection that I realized what it really wasn't so much me taking care of Stephen as much as it was Stephen who was taking care of me. Like what he did was he gave me the greatest gift anybody can be given, and that's the gift of purpose. He gave me no quit, Forbes. He gave me no quit. He gave me no backdoor. He gave me, you have to figure this out, lady. You do not have a choice. You cannot let him be, the responsibility of the government and an institution. So toughen up and figure it out. And when that realization came I was like, if I survive cancer, I'm always going to play. I'm always going to play big. I'm going to move the ball down the field and use my voice to speak for others and just, it's just such a magnanimous gift that I believe we've all been given. It's just not under a Christmas tree. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I was diagnosed with something. I ended up in the hospital, and my kids thought that was it a couple of Christmases ago. And it wasn't. But I will tell you, when you're up against the end, and just recently, you don't know this, but in March, we were all in a very bad van accident in Iceland. My face went through the glass onto the street. And right out of that, you're going to love this. My husband's this bodybuilder, and I was out of shape, and I'd been building a business and sitting behind a computer for 4 years. I entered a bikini fitness competition, my girl.
I saw that. You didn't see my comments? I'm like, girl.
And out of that came a little book called Flip the Switch. That's what you did on that plane ride back, was you flipped a switch that you don't get to go back from. There's little flip switches we flip every day. I actually listened to Tom Brady last night. I saw a meme, and it's funny how memes can sometimes speak to you. And it said, the definition of a champion is that you get out of bed when your body doesn't feel like it, and you move when your mind doesn't want to. And I thought, that was me this morning going to the gym earlier. I was like, oh, I've got to do this. When I flipped the switch, though, I was at the gym 2 hours. There was no conversation because I had a strong purpose, and I admitted to everyone I was doing this. And when you flip the switch, you don't get to go back. So every decision that you brought back down to your baseline of purpose brought you back up to where you want to go. How is Stephen doing now?
Say that again.
What's Stephen doing now?
Stephen's doing great. He lives with my parents. I'm his legal guardian. And he will never be institutionalized. He's well taken care of. And I actually was able to do that before my 30th birthday. I was able to take over as his legal guardian, and ultimately provide for him. He's in a great adult daycare program. And I'm really proud of that. Really, really, really proud of that. I'm able to take care of a lot.
I'm proud of what you've done. So you divorced your husband at that point. Did you think you were at a very bottom point back then? Obviously.
I thought cancer was hard, but divorce was like really showed me who was boss.
Oh, no. We may have to talk offline about that.
That one, I just feel like cancer is like nobody's out to get you. In cancer, like you're just you're surviving against and like, I don't know, something very nebulous, right. But it isn't like a person that's trying to hurt you or whatever. And I was up against lawyers and law, and I was like way out of my league, but I was dealing with all this, I don't know, just this reckoning. So, it did ultimately get me to a better place, but it was, I don't know, just life does happen for you because I am a better person. I'm so much more compassionate. I was such a judgy von Judgestein before I went through all this. Forbes, I had all these thoughts. I'd be like, if this guy ever did that to me, I would do this and I'd do that. And, the universe is like, oh, really? Here, hold my beer. Let's see what you're really going to do. Ooh. And then I used to say, like, if I ever got cancer, I would never do chemo because I would never hold my beer. Here you go, honey. What you going to do with your cancer now? You become so much softer as the universe allows you opportunities to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes and realize like you don't know unless you go through something. So I'm just a nicer person. I'm better to be around. I am a no judgment zone. I got you. Like you can sit down and talk to me about anything. I'm not going to judge you. I'm like, tell me what your journey is all about. So it's where it kind of fits
I
me.
have not really spoken to you in the last 2 years because after, and by the way, it goes very fast. I can't believe COVID was now almost 5 years ago. You're like, wait a second, that chunk of time. What have you been doing? What have you been focused on?
It's been such a roller coaster, and I continue to go to this thought, Forbes, like, again, things are happening for me. It's not what happens to me, it's how I respond to these things. And I've always done television. You and I connected actually on Clubhouse because we had very similar viewpoints on COVID and the mandates, and we were very aligned in like civil liberties, right?
And
We learned
right, just saying.
We and turns out, yeah. So we had a lot of alignment in like advocating for civil liberties. And I think that's a safe space to put it of like, we were like, I think we should all have choice. And I really loved you were as vocal as I was, and we took some heat. So since then, honestly, my life has taken another really hard shift. I went back on television. I've had a lot of fun. I wrote a book. But last year, October 7th hit, and there was a crisis in the Middle East. There's all the battles between, against terrorism. The rise in anti-Semitism on college campuses has hit hard, and has somewhat kind of made me take a pause, take another moment of like, okay, how do I respond to all this? How do I leave this world a better place for my children? How do I navigate this? This is nothing I have ever experienced, nothing I thought would ever happen. The rise in anti-Semitism, the Jew hate, the misinformation, it's been like epic. So, I mean, so I get death threats. I have two Jewish boys on college campuses. I have a Jewish son in a Jewish fraternity. Bricks thrown through his windows. I mean, we're talking the full gamut of like, this is really scary. Cancer was scary. Divorce was hard. But people coming at you because of your religious, not even my religious beliefs, just like I don't even know. Like, I'm not even that religious.
It's heritage, you can't get out of it.
I don't even know. It's like crazy. So it's such a difficult question. What have you been up to? I've been trying to regain my sea legs of like, how do I go on television dressed up like Olivia Newton-John on the Today Show because it's Halloween? Meanwhile, my people are under attack. We are, it's a very real situation. And I keep going to this, Forbes, of okay, how do I leave this world a better place? How do I leave it a better place for everyone, not just the Jews, but the Muslims, the Christians, the Arabs, the Hindus, the atheists? How do I do that? Because hiding isn't working and doing nothing isn't working. And how do I do that? So my thread has been, okay, everything I'm doing from this point forward is with the intentionality, going to intention of leaving this world a better place, living with service, using my voice to serve others, because that's in alignment with the vow I made when I was 13. Not only to do work for Stephen, but maybe the Stephens of the world, maybe speaking for those who can't speak for themselves, maybe being that amplifier of truth and humanity and love and peace and dignity and equality. So that's kind of where I'm navigating to now of like, okay, I'm a television personality, but dressing up like Olivia Newton-John is probably not working at the highest good, at my highest expression of good. And how do I also handle death threats and fear and isolation? But I'm just doing it. I'm going to my intention. Like, I can't control anything except my intentions.
Well, I will tell you that one of the ways that you are doing it is to be a role model of a working woman who tells her story, who overcame cancer, who's raising two boys. I will tell you, as I've got a boy and a girl, I am reminded as I speak all over the world and do what I'm doing, mostly about women's rights.
Yeah.
Well, women's rights and ageism. I've dealt with those things. And you're like, well, this is kind of interesting how what we got denied growing up. And now at a certain age, at a certain level, if we don't do something to bring awareness on every level. I raised a little boy from South Central Los Angeles. He was a little blacker than that table back there. For 12 years of his life, he was murdered. I was his, he was my best man at my wedding and my son. And the kid who killed him didn't have a mentor, walked up behind him and shot him 10 times in the back, because we can't seem to get over this black and white issue. I don't know what it is that we do as cultures. And it always upset me that we can't wait to hate other people. And we'll do it at every level, to the point that if you're on one football team and you're on another, you destroy, if it's an away game, the town that you're in, because you're on two different teams. It doesn't make it mind-blowing to me. So then you get religion and culture and black and white and women and men. And then it's always people who live next door to each other that don't like each other. The Chinese and the Japanese, the Albanians and the Serbians are like, what? We don't even, really? So it's a great conversation to continue to have. And by the way, just being on television, your level of fame continues to lead, which I'm really about that. As I say that, do you have a word of the year? Like when you were going through all this, you have a word that you have ever said, this is my word for this year?
Every once in a while I start writing things down, because the power of writing things down. It embeds in the subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind has no sense of humor, so put words of empowerment. Compassion at times has been mine, and I think it's something that I always regulate back to, of most people really aren't hateful. I don't want to feel like the world is hateful. I don't want to hate my neighbors, but it's tough when so many things, these things are designed to challenge your human experience, right? We're all just passing through. They're all designed so that we don't gravitate towards hate, because I'm sure losing your son, I'll never, that just kills me every time I hear that. I don't know, that's
spending 3 years trying to find the killer and then watching him go through court and spending 52 years to life in jail. Let me tell you, I did not think that my wedding photo would be on the cover of the LA Times. But I do believe that particular thing happened to me as we were talking. And Heather and we all got the same download, that life happens for you, not to you. We can preach that to each other and restate it. But I'm a firm believer in that. So I get to have a platform about raising black and white. I know it's fascinating to me. And then sometimes people want to put me in my place going, well, what do you know? Well, I know what I know. And I know more than most people who are in one culture and never in the other culture. Mm-hmm. And I continually fight about just there's not a lot of love in the life. I mean, I got to tell you, I'm in my TV studio right now. I own a beautiful building, and I had an event here. And when you look right, left, up, and down, even on a Zoom call, you'll never see a face that looks like yours. It's completely different. Our level of diversity, if I tried to make it diverse, would be hysterical. My cameramen, one was from Kuwait, the other's Nigeria. My stepdaughter is half Mexican, half American. You're like, I did it. And I didn't set out to do it. I did it because they're the most qualified people for the job. And if you think that way, you will get that level of diversity. But I don't see other people wanting to do that. I don't know what it is. Is it a mass hallucination and hypnotism that says you must take a vaccine, or the COVID is this, or whatever it is that we're dealing with? And I don't know. It's interesting that you bring that subject up.
Yeah. And it's good that you're just continuing to keep it front and center in conversation, because sometimes people do, like you just said, minimize your value because what do you know? Or using slurs to kind of put you down or make you less than. And when I'm like, no, I'm looking to I want to move the ball down the field to a better place. My intention is to leave this world a better place, not only for my children, but for your children. Can we have dialogue that is difficult without name calling and minimizing and not listening and all these things? Just, if we can all just get on the same page of how do we make this world safer?
Barbara, here's the thing. We don't. I've been listening to this I'm so glad the election is over. I don't really care which side won. I'm just glad it's over, because I'm listening to universities and I'm listening to people who are on left and right of issues just all over the place. So divisive. I've never imagined a time where you couldn't have a dialogue and disagree with somebody without them then throwing in a slur and saying, well, you're that. It's like, no, I'm just having a different side of the debate. In debate class, they made you take the opposite side so there was something to fight about, technically.
Yes.
What a crazy time that we're in. So, by the way, the best thing that you're doing is raising two amazing children, as Great. They are, in fact, the next generation. And I'm fascinated they see things differently. And I hope that the world continues in a beautiful, harmonious way. Having said that, we've got 3 minutes left. What do you want my audience to know?
I think we all need to get realigned with love. I think we all need to find compassion, love, kindness, and curiosity. Let's get curious why people believe certain things, what is important to them, so that we can do right by all communities, not just our own community, not for me, just, the women, Jewish, blah, blah, blah community, but for the transgender, for the Blacks, for the whites, for the
Oh,
Asians.
no. Are we up to 1 minute? Oh, my God. Zip that up real quick.
Yeah, no, that's it. Be kind and compassionate.
And I love that message. How do we find Barbara Majeski?
It's at Barbara Majeski on Instagram, TikTok, and barbaramajeski.com.
And on TV, where do we find you?
I'm all over the place. Fox and Friends to the Today Show, so you never know where I'm going to pop up.
What a lovely, amazing spirit. I want this conversation to go on. All right, you guys, I've run out of time for today, which went incredibly fast, but that's what happens when you have the most compelling guests and amazing friends, and I'm blessed to have both of them too. So we've got Heather Monahan and Barbara Majeski today. Thank you both so very much for being here, enlightening my audience and everyone who hears this. The word of the day is love. And I will follow up next week with talking about how a word for the year might in fact change your intention. Barbara was so beautiful about her passion and her purpose. And I want you to share this with everybody you can. What a great broadcast. Guys, until I see you next, health, wealth, and happiness. Be kind to each other.
All clear. Great show.
That went too fast. Oh my goodness.
I know, that was so great. I loved it.
Hope you both have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, my darling.